On August 31, 2018, agents assigned by the Chinese Communist Party organized some relatives of Christians from the Church of Almighty God, who had fled to South Korea from China, to hold a press conference at the Jeju Parliament under the pretext of seeking for relatives. They strongly requested the Korean authorities to deport the displaced Christians back to China between September 1 and September 4. Ms. Oh, a pro-Chinese Korean activist, recruited professional demonstrators along with some relatives of Christians from the Church of Almighty God to stage false, spontaneous demonstrations, respectively, at the church's communities in Seoul and Chungcheongbuk-do, and before the Blue House, the executive office of the President of South Korea. During the demonstrations, Mr. Peter Zoehrer, an Austrian reporter and the executive director of the Forum for Religious Freedom Europe, was one of the witnesses on site. He witnessed the hateful representations of the self-styled demonstrators and had interviews with some Christians from the Church of Almighty God who are in South Korea. He stated that the Church of Almighty God has been subjected to persecution in China, and that the church members had fled to South Korea and sought asylum there for religious freedom. He also pointed out that it is the Chinese Communist Party that had disrupted their families, while the Church of Almighty God had not been responsible for family disruption. Please join us for the footage of his interviews.
I accepted Almighty God's work of the last days in September 2012, and I came to South Korea in April 2016. My parents have been influenced by the rumors which the CCP government created to slander the Church of Almighty God, so they extremely opposed my belief in God. As I studied at a college in southern China, in or about June 2013, just 1 month before my graduation, suddenly I saw my dad in my teacher's office. Later, my dad, with the help of my teacher and my classmates, tried to persuade me to go back home, as he didn't allow me to believe in God anymore. Several days later, I talked to my dad about belief in God, and said that I just wanted to live a life of worshiping God. But my dad didn't agree. With the help of my teacher and my classmates, he was still trying to persuade me to go back home. One day, he said to me, "Do you want to go back or not? You'd better agree and go back with me. If not, I will report you to the police, and I will call the news media, and we will make news." At 5 o'clock the next morning, I escaped and went to a sister's house. But my dad found me through the CCTV camera and also called the police. My dad, my classmates, and some other people surrounded the house where I stayed, and they shouted my name. Later, they broke into the house. I had no choice but to go back home with my dad. At that time, I hadn't graduated yet, so later I went back to school. After my graduation, I did not return to my hometown but lived in other places because my parents opposed my belief and they did not allow me to believe in God. Since the Chinese government was constantly hunting for believers in God, I had moved home more than 10 times within 1 year or more since I started to believe in God. Later, I heard that there's religious freedom in South Korea, so I wanted to go to South Korea. Then I went back home to apply for my passport. It was August 2014 when I went back home. Not long after the May 28th McDonald's incident took place. Every day, on the TV, on the newspaper, there was this kind of phony news. So when I returned home, my parents didn't allow me to leave. So I had to believe in God at home. My mom opposed me the most. Once she said, "If you would dare to go out and preach, I will report you to the police and they'll put you into prison." And one time, she took a knife and was ready to go downstairs to find my brothers and sisters who believe in Almighty God. She threatened me, "If you would leave this house, I will go find them." Upon hearing her words, I thought, I am a grown-up. I have my own thoughts. I have the right to choose my own belief. However, my parents have always been persecuting me and restricted my personal freedom. And they are even so ruthless. I didn't want to continue to live such a depressed life at home. About 1 year later, in April 2016, I came to South Korea. Last year, my dad came to look for me, and I wanted to meet him as I had not seen him for a long time, but I was not able to see him. And several days earlier, I heard that my mom also came, and I was not able to meet her either. My parents knew my belief in God, and I have told them when I was still at home that belief in God is my own choice, and they should leave me alone. But they still came here to look for me. I feel that they're really influenced by the rumors spread by the CCP. They just came here to persecute me.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I came to South Korea in 2015, and I accepted Almighty God's work of the last days in 2012. Due to the CCP's persecution of our church and the many rumors it spread about our church, whenever I went to meet with my brothers and sisters, I had to be very careful because surveillance cameras were everywhere. My parents were also deceived by the CCP's rumors, and whenever I mentioned the belief in God, they would try to persuade me to give it up. They were always interfering with my belief. That is, my parents persecuted me. At home, I couldn't believe in God normally, and a lot of brothers and sisters around me were arrested by the CCP. Under these circumstances, in order to continue my belief, I could only leave my family and go abroad. In fact, I didn't want to leave my home because I have a child to take care of and husband I am attached to. But because of the persecution from my parents, the government's suppression of religious freedom, and the pressure from the public opinion, I could not believe in God or live the church life in China. If I was arrested in China, I would not be the only one who gets punished. My family, including my child, would definitely be harassed or disturbed by the CCP. There were many such precedents around me. I didn't want to get them in trouble or see them get hurt, so I had no choice but to leave them and go abroad. Since I came to South Korea in 2015, my husband has come here 3 times. In the previous 2 times, I was very happy when I knew that he was here, because I had such a precious opportunity to see him after our long separation, and so we met each other. When we met for the first time in South Korea, I told him about my situation here. I told him that the South Korean government respects the freedom of religious belief, and I had a good life here. When he learned that everything was well with me, he rested assured. He said he came here simply to meet me, and that he was told by Miss Oh and the CCP that they could help him get in touch with me, but he didn't expect that when he came here, the Chinese government and Miss Oh would make him part of the demonstration, so he knew nothing about it before he came to South Korea. But after he learned that everything was fine with me, and it wasn't like what the CCP said that I was controlled by the church, he set his mind at rest.
Good. How did he tell you this? How did you communicate when he came here this time?
It was through the police. My husband sought the help of a Korean police officer, and then the officer contacted our church, and our church contacted me. That's how we met.
So he was there yesterday, my husband?
Yes, he was. But yesterday, when he demonstrated outside our church, he shouted my name, asking me to go out and meet him, leaving others the impression that we have never met each other since I came here. That is not true, because we have already met twice, but his attitude was completely different. He shouted outside our church, taking the side of the CCP while he spoke. I feel that he was pressured by the CCP to do so, because he knew pretty clearly that I have a good life in South Korea, and I have told him before everything is well with me here. I don't know what the CCP has done to him, maybe through threat or maybe through bribing him. In sum, his attitude was quite different from before. It was beyond my imagination.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.